Welcome back to Up Front. A Foxconn-style incentive package to help keep papermaker Kimberly-Clark in the Fox Valley faces an uncertain future in the state Senate. The state would pay for a portion of wages and plant upgrades if Kimberly-Clark keeps its plants open. We're talking about 600 workers employed there. The package is expected to cost at least $100 million. Governor Walker supports it, and the state assembly has already approved it. GOP Senate President Roger Roth, whose district includes Kimberly-Clark, is pushing for it.
Now the ball's in the court of the state Senate. It's our job right now to come in and finish this deal.
But other senators are non-committal, and the deal might even need Democratic support to pass. Delafield Republican Senator Chris Kapenga announced his opposition to the deal last week, and he joins us now on Up Front. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Good to see you.
So in a nutshell, why would you oppose this kind of deal, which would keep 600 jobs in the state of Wisconsin?
There's always two things that, in my position, I have to kind of look at. And you always filter it through the principle, and then your policy comes from your principle. So the principle of this is it the role of government, or what is the role of government when it comes to businesses? And we're supposed to have a regulatory framework that businesses can work within, and we try to keep that as minimal as possible, so that businesses can do what they need to do, but there's no unfair advantages between one business or the other from a government regulator.
You're not picking winners or losers.
Correct.
You don't want to do that.
That's the rhetoric you typically hear. Those are the sound bites. So we have a situation where we've got an employer in the state who is saying, hey, I can't come to terms with the cost structure to make it work here. So they go to their union, and the union leaders were not able to come to terms with what Kimberly-Clark was saying. This is where we need to be. And high level, it's important to remember, Kimberly-Clark is looking at shutting plants down across the country. So this is one of the options that they're looking at. So it's not a situation, and people always refer to Foxconn in this because it's Foxconn style,
right?
But it's a completely separate situation that we've got here. So that's really important as we look at the policy related to the principle.
Yeah, because I know you hear this, they'll say, well, you voted for Foxconn. That is picking winners and losers. This is a big subsidy from the state to a private corporation. Yeah. Your response is you think these are different cases?
Yeah, and I made sure, I issued a statement. We were very careful with how we worded that because I wanted people to make sure they understood the difference between Foxconn, and I didn't want to get into a debate of, hey, is Foxconn good or bad? That's done with. We voted on it. We agreed it was good policy because you've got a company who's in a fundamentally different industry that's going to bring new jobs to the state that will fundamentally transform the makeup. And this is an opportunity that's unique and different. It's growing jobs. Transfer over, what is the situation with Kimberly-Clark is you have a contracting industry. You're not providing incentives to increase jobs. You're saying, hey, we're going to help bridge a gap here because you couldn't, your union leaders and you couldn't come up with the ability to do it. And I fundamentally disagree with the concept that they're trying to say, hey, here's a contract, and in that we're going to talk about the state and government coming in to kind of resolve what we couldn't.
So you don't feel you're being inconsistent on this issue, that your concern is that Kimberly-Clark now sets a different kind of precedent, that this could be, you could have companies all around the state saying, hey, we need some help here. Yeah. What are you going to do for us?
It was the biggest concern as we debated Foxconn. And then you had Fiserv kind of get thrown in there, which I completely disagreed with. I tried to get that pulled out, but I couldn't. It's the same concept where we said when we were talking about it, we want to make sure that this doesn't become a leverage tool for companies to come to the state and say, we'd like to have the taxpayers pay part of this money, because there's no magic money tree here. We have to go to the taxpayers. So the $116 million or whatever it would end up being, literally we would have to go to taxpayers and say, we're going to take this out of your work check so that we can fund this company. And we're in a very different type of economy than we were 10 years ago. And I think sometimes people have a hard transition. We don't have a jobs issue right now. We have a worker shortage issue. And the net impact on the economy of Kimberly-Clark staying or going will be very minimal, because those workers, although it's unfortunate and you hate to see families go through this.
Good jobs.
There are a lot of jobs out there, and I just talked to 2 employers yesterday who said, I cannot find workers. And if Kimberly-Clark would go down, and this were their words, they said, I would be able to hire them in an instant, and we would love to find good workers.
Let me talk to you about the politics of this. Your caucus, the Republicans, will talk about this probably on Tuesday of this coming week. You've come out opposed to this. Do you think you'll have other Republicans who will oppose this too?
I expect so.
You do?
There have been a lot of discussions about this because remember, this legislation has gone through in a form, we kind of have an idea of what it would look like because the Assembly has already passed a package. And so we look at that, and the reason the Senate did not pass that package is because we were not comfortable with it. So that's what we'll be continuing to talk about, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that I am taking a very strong position that I do not feel this is appropriate in this economy with this specific situation to go do a separate piece of legislation for a company outside of, we already have some parameters in place. If you're a company, any company can go to WEDC and say, hey, I need some help with this, and they can go through a process. Kimberly-Clark is saying, hey, you know what, we're special. We couldn't come up with a solution within those parameters, so we want you to come back and do special legislation and take almost 2.5 times what the regular packages are from the taxpayers, and I just don't agree with that.
You mentioned we're in a different sort of economy, but we're also in an election year, and the governor would very much like this to happen. Is there any problem for you politically by taking a stand that could potentially hurt the governor if those jobs were to leave Wisconsin?
No, I mean, you have to remember we are at record unemployment levels. Low, not high, low. We've never been at this level before, and again, go talk to any employer, and you talk to people, just regular people out there too, they know that they have a pick of jobs right now, and we're seeing the cost of living or the wages continuing to rise. So people are finding better jobs where they can make more money because that's just the nature of the economy. So overall, we couldn't be in a better position as a state for this type of situation, although it's unfortunate. We have to remember that too.
Senator Chris Kapenga, we appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for being with us. Our editorial partner, WisPolitics.com, keeps you up to date on Kimberly-Clark and other developing stories with a new daily podcast. Check out WisPolitics Midday at WisPolitics.com. Still ahead, one of the hottest primary races in Wisconsin. Who will replace Speaker Ryan?